Hi everyone, just connecting with all of you today for another video update. We're getting down to the last few weeks of the course, so I wanted to touch base. I'm in the midst of marking test 2, so I'll have all of those returned to you, I'm hoping by Wednesday, and then my next goal will be assignment 3, marking those between Wednesday and the weekend and getting those back to you quickly, as quickly as I can. I also posted today on the news feed as well as in Dropbox the D2L discussion rubric where you will self-evaluate how you feel you did in the discussions throughout the semester and to assign yourself an overall grade out of 10. So you'll have that to upload by April 6th. Some of you are already done and might want to upload it sooner, and that's fine by me. I'm not too worried as long as it's done no later than the 6th. So that's pretty much just the housekeeping stuff I kind of wanted to talk about today, but I also wanted to just do a sort of mini lecture, if you will, about some best practices in HR, talk a little bit about recruitment selection, interviewing, performance appraisals, orienting staff and career developing staff. So some important things to kind of know about is so much of HR today is about employee fit and fit within the organizational culture, how the organization interacts and feels, the climate and culture, what they value and how they get along as an organization. Those things have a lot to do with fit, how someone coming into an organization fits within that culture and that context, how they get along with everyone. And while merit and of course qualifications is critical, alignment of values and how someone's going to operate within the structure is also really, really important, especially more and more today. Why so much attention is being paid to how people present themselves on social media is because they are ultimately ambassadors of the organization, and how they act and behave and react in situations is largely indicative of their character, and their character as an ambassador of an organization is representative of that organization. So sort of things to keep in mind when you're looking at those issues. So when recruiting and selecting, fit is really important, as well as absolute qualifications for jobs and good alignment with the position, ability to do the position and do it well. We've talked a lot about interview and interview techniques and open-ended questioning that involves situational and behavioral questions, what have you done or what would you do, situational kind of questions. Using a panel is a really good practice so that there's multiple perspectives. It's not always done that way. A lot of you will tell me how it's been done in your organization, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the most contemporary best practice. It doesn't necessarily mean it's the wrong practice either. A lot of these things are theoretical and perspective oriented. So just some things to consider in terms of doing interviews. Some people do trial interviews, job shadow type interviews today, multiple interviews. Some organizations also do, as I was saying, multiple interviews where they'll bring you in and maybe there's a written component after the interview or a hands-on component to accompany the interview. There's mobile interviewing, interviewing via Skype and FaceTime and all kinds of different things today. So the textbook certainly introduces you to a lot of theory, but then there's a lot of things that happen in practice that are different and deviate from that theory. And not necessarily right or wrong, just different. Certainly wrong as if they're violating any human rights or legislation framework, but there's lots of different ways that theory can be implemented and different perspectives on that theory. In terms of orienting and onboarding, which is one of the common things done today or known as onboarding, is getting people in and supporting them in the transition into their new role. And it can be the littlest things, and you can Google some ideas on best practices for orientation onboarding, but it can be little things like having their desk ready and the policy manual available to them, a mentor available, somebody who can give them a tour and socialize them and take them out to lunch on the first day or their first week and introduce them to other staff, let them know processes and procedures, and not just sort of dumping somebody in and expecting that they'll just be okay. So a lot of those little best practices go a long way. Getting a good orientation is a huge step in helping somebody feel welcomed and socialized and then willing to stay. As you've learned, I'm sure, or know from personal experience, professional experience, recruitment and selection and interviewing and orienting is expensive. Training and then having someone leave is expensive. So I am a big proponent of investing in those things wisely to ensure a person is properly brought on board and into the fold and comfortable in their new role, well supported in the new role, trained and understanding all of the components of the role, so that they're not only set up to do a good job, but they're set up to fit well within your structure and your culture, and not just left at a desk and forgotten about. And certainly once, and it's a process that happens maybe over a week, 2 weeks, in some cases a month. When I used to work in social services, we would orient our new staff for a full month. They'd be mentored and buddied up with somebody. So those are, just different practices depending on what an organization can do. Once you've had an employee for a while, there should be an evaluative framework. Usually the first 3 to 6 months after the probationary period is the first evaluation, the first performance appraisal. And those are done in all different ways. And again, not all the best ways or the wrong ways, just different ways. Some of the better practices are certainly to do it more than once a year, and it not to just be some sort of token checklist, but meaningful coaching and evaluation and identifying what's working really, really well, goals and strengths, and that sort of orientation to ways you can improve and continue to grow as an employee, and not necessarily punitive or even corrective, but just honest dialogue where it sort of sets out positive perspectives as well as ways to improve and grow. Those things should be documented. They shouldn't just be a quick checklist done and rated everybody in the middle, or rated everybody too strictly or too leniently, but truly evaluating merit and how well the employee is doing, and having those conversations. And managers can ongoingly coach and mentor their staff and give feedback. People thrive on feedback. So those kinds of things are important as part of performance management, and different, whether you use a tool or a checklist or a meeting. I think documentation is really important, and I think consistency and meaningful dialogue is really important. Career development. This is another piece. I've had employees around for a little bit, and I want to grow them and encourage them and know what their goals are and how to support them in those goals, and have conversations about whether it's promotion or new challenging rotations, or new positions to try or to have exposure to, or new development goals, personal, professional, or academic development goals. These are all things that supervisors and managers do to continue developing their employees throughout their career, so that nobody feels like they've stagnated or suddenly want to start looking for new jobs because this hasn't been on the radar. So important considerations as an employee to keep in mind, and as a manager or supervisor in whatever capacity you're in, if you have employees under you, to keep in mind. That keeps employees engaged, makes them feel valued. Employee engagement and employee empowerment, engaging your staff and asking questions and seeking their feedback and consulting with them, and having levels of decision making that you can empower them to do. Trying new tasks, new challenges, having exposure to new experiences, training, and whatnot. I know sometimes this all sounds ideal, and in a lot of HR theory, it is about what's ideal versus what's real, and you get out there and it doesn't look that way sometimes, but we should all strive to the ideal. The theoretical foundation is there to learn and grow from, and then you can look around at companies who are the best managed companies in Canada, or the top ranked companies as places that people really want to work. There's a reason for that. You can look at some of the practices. You don't necessarily have to recreate a wheel or reinvent a wheel, but learn from the best and follow that lead in terms around practices that are strong for engagement, empowerment, evaluation, orientation. I mean, I've worked in organizations there isn't any of those. Not working there anymore. Sometimes there's reasons for that. Working here has been a wonderful experience because the college is really a committed to lifelong learning, committed to educating and supporting staff, engaging staff. So, that's a wonderful place to work, and I wish everybody has that. So I hope this kind of helped solidify the chapters we've been working on, just with a few tips and to clarify that while you might read this in this textbook, but you haven't experienced that in a real world setting, or maybe you read something different online, just remember that a theory is just that, a perspective on how things can be done. There's multiple theories and multiple perspectives. Sometimes in our real lived experience it doesn't align with the theory. That doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but deviates from the theory. Be a critical thinker and analyze and look at and assess, is this good practice? Could we improve? How could we improve? Who's out there that's doing it great? And maybe create a vision for ourselves of how we can do that too. So I hope this video is useful. I'm on top of the marking, and I will get back the pieces back to you this week. Definitely fill out your self-evaluation rubric for the D2L. It's worth 10 points between now and April 6th, and if I get them early, I'll mark them early. If I agree with your mark, I'll assign the mark that you gave yourself. If you have questions, I continue to encourage you to send them my way. And thank you for your frequent engagement with me, and I hope you're learning a lot. So that's all for now. Thank you very much, and welcome back from March break.